question mark out there. It seems like actually we may be. I clicked live, then I clicked stop, then I clicked live again, and you are telling me with a thumbs up that we're like, Tom, I'm talking. I'm on. You don't have to tell me to start going.
I'm saying we're live, so for the podcast listeners, the first 40 seconds of this podcast is me and you going back and forth. Are we live? I don't know if we're
I think
live.
we've been getting messages from people on the podcast asking for more time in which we ask if we're going live. So I was trying to provide that to all of them, but you shut me down. You cut me out there, and now we move on.
I demand excellence. I'm
You do.
I'm just trying to look what's best for you, what's best for us.
Perfection in every aspect of the game. You drop the ball, you run a mile. You fumble the ball, I break my foot off in your John Brown hind parts, and then you will run a mile.
Ball security is job security, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. We are
The New York Football Giants.
Nice. We are job insecure ourselves today, but we've got a lot to do. We have a lot to talk about. We have a shield race that may be done. Philadelphia may have done the deed. It might be over. They, I don't know, somehow made DC United's year worse. And at the same time, every single thing went their way. So we're going to talk about that coming up, what happened to all the teams around them. We are going to talk about the New York Red Bulls, who it looks like are not going to go to the postseason for the first time in Red Bull Arena's history, otherwise known as Sports Illustrated Stadium. That one's just for you. We'll talk about the Western Conference playoff race, which took a weird turn as well. And we will talk about the U.S. Open Cup, a tournament maybe that is our favorite here at Soccerwise and Kickback. We have an interview with Dan Lovitz, starting left back, and Nashville SC original, previewing the game, talk about the season that is. We talked about the meat grinder that is the Eastern Conference. They are on, I believe it's 43 points right now, which last year would have finished fourth in the East, and they're currently sitting in sixth with the chance they could drop still to eighth or move all the way up to third. Like, it is wild. So we talked all about that, as well as what it'll be like in Austin, what it means to the club, and everything. If you're watching live or you're watching on YouTube, go to the podcast feed for that interview. And if you're listening here, you can just keep listening, and then we'll just start talking, and that's what will happen. Tom, it has been a long weekend for me. How are you doing?
I want to no. How are you? How many baseball games did you watch? How many baseball games did you go to? What were you thinking when the months-long meltdown? Just give me everything. And I don't even have a good question. Just go.
I thought we were going to get through without this. I thought maybe we'd just sneak by. Yeah, so I'm a Mets fan, and the Mets came and played in Miami, where I live now, this weekend, in a series in which if they won all three games, they made the playoffs. So they lost on Friday. And then they needed Cincinnati to lose on Sunday for them to make the playoffs. And then Cincinnati lost on Sunday. But there was a little wrinkle in there, which was the Mets also had to win. And that is an unaskable thing to do of a professional baseball team that is paid over $340 million collectively for their salaries to play a sport and to try and play it at any decent level. So I went to the game on Friday night, in which we were in a situation where if we went out, we control our own destiny. They scored 2 runs in the first. I was there on time. I'm singing My Girl to Francisco Lindor. I'm feeling it. This is my building. I own Lone Depot Stadium. All this stuff. And then 5th inning, Carlos Mendoza, Tinkerbot, comes on out. He's got to change things, got to make sure to get the bullpen in, treat everything like it's Game 7 of the World Series. It all blew up in their face. From that moment on, I didn't go to the Saturday game, and I went to the Sunday game. So the Mets, in 17 innings after that first inning that I watched, scored 0 runs and lost both games. But on Saturday, when I didn't go, they won 5-0 or 6-0. It was somehow the best pitching performance of the second half of the year and the best hitting performance, and I was not there for it. Now, I would like everyone to know that I had no intention of going on Sunday because I understood the evil inside of me that I carried to the stadium. But it was bark at the park, and my wife and her
on the final day of the season?
That's what happens when you're the Miami Marlins.
That's good. Are they trying to juice numbers because the animals have 4 legs? You get to count them as 2?
Pretty much. Anything to get someone in the building, which is what I told the guy sitting 3 rows in front of me who's heckling the Mets straight out the gate. And he's like, Marlins. And it's like, Marlins what? you guys been in the postseason in a decade? Do you guys even have 7 professional baseball players on this team? So we had already bought tickets, which I was unaware of. So we went on Sunday again.
Making so many deals, bro.
Yeah, we went on Sunday again, and we sat in the outfield and we watched Payne. And it was like I was stupid. I had the stream up for the Reds game on my phone because I'm like, I gotta know. And I turned to them and I said, if the Brewers score, because the Reds were playing the Brewers, you're gonna hear this place go nuts because everyone's a Mets fan. No, they said it was the 3 highest attended games of the season. Like, it's all Mets fans. No one made a peep because everyone knew it didn't freaking matter. The Brewers came from behind to win the game. It was so painful, and it's like they got shut at. I mean, it's everything, and you know it's coming, and it still hurts. I don't understand that. I don't understand how that part, like,
it's beauty of sports, brother.
After it ended, I go, that's exactly how I thought it was gonna go. And then she was like, okay, cool. So your final was like, no. I am so depressed right now. I have no idea what to do. I made us walk home. It's like a 45-minute walk. I was like, I need to sweat all of this out. So I would say for Columbus fans, for Red Bull fans, who else would go in there? Maybe RSL fans, probably Houston fans, definitely Cincinnati and San Diego in this exact moment.
Yep.
I know exactly how you feel. It is what the line that I do love is the reason that sports fandom's unfair is because you're a fanatic and you're not a customer. I can't turn around and be like, you know what? The Mets suck at this, so I won't care anymore. I'm going to take my money elsewhere. I'm going to be a fan of someone else. That is not an option. But Knicks Abu Dhabi preseason game, October 2nd. Get ready.
Get ready to learn Bing Bong, buddy. Hope springs eternal.
Get ready. Oh, my God. If the Jets win Monday Night Football in Miami tonight, by the way, I will be more upset that one New York team won, and it was the one that has no
you're
shot
leaving.
at the
You're leaving.
And also the Mets had 162 that could have won. I don't care about the one for the Jets. But you don't get to trade them around. You don't get to move them. Does that make you feel better, Tom?
I enjoyed every second of that.
Great.
Did that make you feel better? That felt cathartic. I bet WFAN was lit up with calls.
Oh, my God. I didn't even
Fire manager. Back in my day, we threw a starter out there for 8 innings. Hey, yeah, Pedro Martinez. He goes out there, gets you 8 innings and 10 Ks. Where did this go? Where's the baseball I grew up with? All these analytics, all these shifts. What are we doing? Carlos Mendoza, what are you doing?
Listen,
Uncle Stevie, make something happen here.
None of these guys are ball players anymore. No one's a ball player.
Nobody knows the fundamentals. Back in my day,
that guy was a ball player.
We ran the bases. We played hard. We slid into the catcher. Now these guys, what are they doing? They don't hit off a tee anymore. They do virtual reality.
I will bet you money someone called up at some point last night and goes, didn't even see them bunt. Just get guys on base. Why don't you bunt them over? Why you don't even care. You don't even care. Yeah, it's been a tough. Someone sent me a Mike Francesa clip. I'm like, I'm not going to watch this. Then you did. You 100% did. It was actually one of the better things he's ever said because he always trashes my teams. So it's like when you want that, it's like having an evil person that you face at an evil, right? Like in, what is it? Jurassic Park when like the Tyrannosaurus Rex fights the bigger one and you're like, well, now I'm on that one's team. So I'm in favor of this. That's kind of like what it's like. Should we start on the sad stuff then in MLS? No, we should start on the happy stuff. We should go Shield first. We don't have to go.
There's a lot of sad Red Bull Buzz Mets fans.
Oh my God. I was in the Reddit pages, by the way. And I don't know, maybe I don't comment as often as I should. Reddit's like the best place besides our Discord to like experience Major League Soccer. The people who run the MLS are the best people on all of Reddit. It is like the best. Now that I'm in other ones, I'm like, oh, this is like the highest quality one that there is. And then I will dig into team ones because I like to know what people are talking about and experience it and be involved in it.
On the ground, Cap.
And one of the Red Bull posts was like all depression and then ended with, I'm also a Mets fan, so I'm coming out of this like pretty rough. Also, shout out to Eric Gonzalez, one of our favorites, and his son Frankie, who has been born into Red Bull, Mets, Knicks, Rangers, I don't know, whatever depressing thing you can think of. And Belenenses, I believe, is the other team. Philadelphia, though, having a pretty good week. So they destroyed DC United. It was 6-0 was the final.
Yes.
And And then at the same time, every single team that stood around them in the standings found a way to drop points. So on Saturday, already Inter Miami had tied 1-1 at Toronto as the opening game of the day before the night session. So Philly then knows they put up the 6 goals, that they are absolutely good, that they're golden, that they're flying. Then after that, they proceed to have Vancouver drop points at Seattle, San Diego lose at home to San Jose.
It's tough. It's
and
really
then
tough.
on Sunday night, Cincinnati up 1-0 concedes a stoppage time equalizer to Alex Freeman, which at the same time as the Packers are playing, I don't know if you've heard, but his dad actually played in the NFL for the Green Bay Packers. And then so Philadelphia has basically the perfect weekend that anyone could have. They switched their lead atop the Eastern Conference by 4 points. Inter Miami now do not have a higher points per game, so they don't control their own destiny, even if they were to win all of their games in hand. Vancouver, the same. Mm-hmm. Like, what a night from Philly of like, yeah, you know what? If this team's going to be down, we're just going to take all of it.
It's they have a 4-point lead now over Cincinnati, and again that of all of the results, I think the Cincinnati one was the most important for Philly's shield because that now they're 4 points behind them, and with them dropping points, the first tiebreaker is wins. The first tiebreaker isn't goal difference, which Philadelphia already has, but now Philadelphia already has the wins tiebreaker as well. So yeah, they've got one hand on the shield. They've watched everything play out in their favor over, honestly, the last couple of weeks. Like, pretty much Cincy was winning, but Vancouver had it in their hands. Miami gave them a scare with that big win on Wednesday night against NYCFC. And then in the most predictable fashion, Miami barely scraped by DC United at home. Smash NYCFC on the road when we're like, yeah, no, like, this is going to be, like, and then go to Toronto and draw that. Like, it's the perfect quandary. And Philadelphia, again, like, they've held consistent. And the way that you win supporter shields, the way that you win league titles and European competitions and stuff, like regular season Liga MX is, and like, it's a little different because they break it into two, but you win these titles by not performing great against the rivals in the race, though that is nice. This team just lost 7-0 to Vancouver. You win these season-long events by consistently beating teams you're supposed to beat. This is how Manchester City won all of those titles in the Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola rivalry at the end of the 2010s. And Liverpool played them better than anybody. Liverpool seemed to always get a result. And then it'd be like, oh, wow, like, that felt great. Like, we feel like we're better than City. And then City would just go in, like, robot mode and win the next 17 games against mid-table teams. And, Philadelphia's done that this season. They have finished the season really strong with, like, at Cincinnati was a good win. But, like, other than that, they haven't beaten a playoff team outside of Cincinnati since Chicago on June 25th. Or Charlotte
and that's a
on June 12th.
playoff team.
Yeah, like, so they've beaten one playoff team since early June. And sometimes that's just, like, that. I'm not saying this as a knock. I'm saying this as, this is how you win this kind of trophy. You beat the teams you're supposed to beat, and you do it every single week.
Yeah. It's this part of it's most impressive because coming out of Open Cup, it felt like they had let the rope drop. Of the loss to Vancouver was so heavy, and you could only have explained it with, all right, you have eyes towards Open Cup, which they did the weird roster stuff. Carnell had split the roster, but then he pushed the starters back in. Then they looked exhausted against Nashville, and you're like, this is over. Like, they're not the deepest team in this. As you said, the results against the top teams have not been there, and they go up against the top teams to close. Like, we have said this over and over again. That was the big worry for this team, is they finished with NYCFC and Charlotte. And, like, that was the big sticking point in picking them as favorites, even as they led in the last few weeks. So to come back and just take care of business here and put the pressure on everyone else to stick with you, and then them not be able to, and you know, it kind of like takes all of the pressure off your shoulders for these final few games, is massive for this team. And I didn't think they were going to do it. Like, coming out of that Nashville game, I didn't think that they were going to be able to get over the line. I thought they were still a contender in the playoffs, and like every bit an MLS Cup favorite as they were before that. I just didn't think they had the momentum to take them through. And at this point of the season, like that's what a lot of it is. And Miami has never landed on any of that momentum. Every game with them feels like a struggle, and it's a back and forth. TFC have now, I think, drawn like 6 straight games. So I guess you fell to greatness, a great tying team, and that's what happens to you. But like this was Miami only controlled their destiny as long as they continued to win at an insane rate with all of these midweek games, and it felt like it wasn't going to be sustainable with the age that they are at and what they need to do to beat teams, which is be overwhelming.
Yeah, exactly. And it was always a tall task for Miami because of that fixture congestion. And again, not just right now, though right now makes it most important. Like their entire season has been fixture congestion with CONCACAF Champions Cup to Club World Cup, which only 3 teams are in this league had to deal with, which really moved a lot of things around. Then they get to the Leagues Cup final. Like that bumped a lot of stuff back. So it's not even just that, all right, now it's going to be a really hard period of, 7 games in 22 days or whatever the number is. It's been like that all season, so it has not been a respite. And you saw, like, Doyle posted a clip on Blue Sky of what they called transition defending. 6 dudes were in the attacking box. They lost the ball, and Toronto leisurely jogged the ball forward and had a 6-on-4. And by the way, in that, there was no passes. It went to Corbinu, and he kind of slowly dribbled into somebody, and the ball either got taken away or went out of bounds. It was just a disaster class on both ends. But, like, Miami's already not a team that's going to play in transition, but that was particularly like a really good clip to show, oh yeah, like this team is absolutely gassed. Like this is, they gave it all on that win against NYCFC, and then this was the letdown game. And again, we've probably already spent too much time talking about Miami, but they earned that with a couple of those wins to put themselves in this position. Vancouver, too many injuries, and same thing, too many games. And we spoke about this last show, that this isn't the priority. Like, it'd be really nice to win the Shield, but not at the expense of stretching these guys thin and, risking the Canadian Championship or, most importantly, the playoffs.
And that's where the congestion story is for both of them. No one has ever won. No one's ever been to a CONCACAF Champion final and then gone on to do serious damage in the league. Like, what Vancouver is doing is already impressive, but they had it in front of them. And there's very little guarantee that this team is going to even push for MLS Cup, like the way they're set up. So they have the Canadian Championship coming up midweek. That one is against Vancouver FC, which is like a cool matchup for them and everything. But they've won 4 of those. The Shield was, I think, the big trophy for them out there. And if they had picked up the 2 points this weekend, they would have been in the driver's seat to do all of this. And so I think that one is like really upsetting because it's a huge moment for them. And they are limping through the last few stages of this. And I just think that's really unfortunate for them. Now they are still really strong. But to have put yourself in a spot where you would have been, if they had won against Seattle and then had won out, the game in hand, they would have been 1 point behind Philadelphia. And again, Philadelphia has to play NYCFC and Charlotte in the final 2 games. In the Eastern Conference, between 3rd and 6th, is a 3-point gap. So those teams will have something to play for in every single game coming up. It would have been a huge opportunity, and they let the rope slip from their hands as well. And Cincinnati and San Diego, the other 2 big ones. Let's start with San Diego. San Jose at home, they get shut out. 4 goals over the last 5 games. It hasn't been night and day because the style is still there. The ethos is still there. The DNA is still there, but the finishing has not been for them. And it comes in a weekend in which Milan Olaski plays and wins and scores for Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's what's tough. And so in that 5-game stretch, they've dropped points in 4 of those games. It's 1 win, 2 draws, and 2 losses. A draw at home to Portland, which isn't looking great right now. Loss at home to San Jose, and a draw at Atlanta. Like, if you want to win the Shield, those are the games that you win. And I don't want to move the goalposts and be super negative on San Diego. Like, this is literally the best expansion season of all time so far. Like, if they pick up 1 more point, I think that confirms it. And then if they win 1 round in the playoffs, the only argument would be because that Atlanta team and that LAFC team, they lost in the first round of playoffs. Seattle won the Open Cup in 2009. That's the only kind of argument, and they weren't as good in the regular season as San Diego. So, like, while it's very disappointing, and these are games that we thought that they were going to win because we've kind of moved the goalposts, like, I do want to recenter this, that it's still a huge accomplishment. whatever, if they can kind of pick up momentum getting back to the playoffs. But yeah, it is worrying, guys. They have what, 5 million in allocation money. It's a great roster, and their roster building principles is why they're here. It's why they have so much flexibility and why the future looks still so very bright for this team. But they're ahead of schedule in terms of competing for trophies and having all of that allocation money and letting Milan Orlovsky walk when, from what I was told, it wasn't a crazy salary expectation or ask, and negotiations didn't really go anywhere.
We know that because Philadelphia signed him, and Philadelphia's not going huge on those numbers.
And then with that, not signing somebody from abroad. And again, I'm good with not panic signing, but when you score 4 goals over 5 games when you're in the Shield race, unpredictably, maybe prematurely to what your expectations were in game models and planning was for the roster, doesn't look great right now that they didn't bring in another kind of attacker to help with Dreyer and Chucky. And then again, taking a step back too, there were a lot of chances in this game. Yeah. Only Valakari missed one. Chucky came close a couple times. And Dreyer they were good until the finishing touch. And maybe that's randomness, and maybe that's a sign of something deeper. I think it's more randomness, but it's hard to not look at all of the flexibility and then not do it again, particularly Orlovsky walking.
I think the expectation, though, is like Dreyer and Chucky have hit the numbers you'd expect them to hit. And so the quote-unquote randomness is you don't have other guaranteed goal scorers on the roster, and you've gotten what you should expect. Yes, if Andres Dreyer scores 47 goals this year, they were going to win the Supporters' Shield. Like, that's just the way it is for anyone. He's the MVP of the league. He's had a better season than anyone could have hoped for them, but they don't have enough support to bring them to the next level. This is also like Hunter versus Hunted now. People have seen them. People are starting to adjust to them. I don't know adjust is the right word because, as you said, they still create the chances they want to. I just think it's a little more comfortable. I think people were uncomfortable at the beginning because they didn't know what to expect. And all of a sudden you're in these games where this team's passing around you in a different way than anyone else you match up against. And I think now, whether you've experienced it once already or just from watching so much of it, now there's starting to be a feel of like, okay, we know where to settle in here. We expect this to come. And even if you can't fully stop it, it is not this like curveball that's throwing you off where it felt like teams were all over the place in the opening 3 or 4 months, just understanding what was happening and what San Diego was doing. And San Diego, as you said, it will go on to be a historic season no matter what, but they had a huge opportunity. For San Jose, a massive win. We'll get into that because we'll talk about the Western Conference playoffs. Let's finish this out with Cincinnati, who led 1-0 at home on Sunday Night Soccer after Weeby ate pizza or a hot dog with chili wrapped in a pizza.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah.
Is that a thing, or do you think that somebody in Cincy was like, let's see if we can get Weeby to eat this on TV?
So it's funny because they called it a Sky Rosa because it's Skyline Chili and I think La Rosa Pizza.
Isn't La Rosa like a East Coast thing? Or is it
pizza?
Not?
I have no idea. I've never heard of it. There's a bar that's 1 block away that I'm staring at right now because it's the rooftop of this building and it's called Sky Rosa. And so I thought it was like I was like, what? I don't understand what's happening. And I only really saw the comments at first and then I watched the video. And listen, I'm not above it. I ate a hot dog at the game I went to. I'll eat pizza anytime. I wouldn't choose it. Actually, this is a lie.
What are you talking about?
So, the like things that locals always have that they're like, we can convince dumb Americans that this is a real thing. Do you know about drop bears?
No.
Okay, so drop bears are a fake thing in Australia. And someone made a Wikipedia page with a picture of a koala bear with blood on its face. And they created this thing called drop bears. And they're like, when you're walking in Australia, it's super dangerous because drop bears, if you're in their territory, will just drop out of the tree and they will like bite you. They're super violent. They don't even exist. But like when I first was told it, I was like, oh, well, you got to watch out for drop bears. And then at some point, someone doesn't realize the bit or like isn't a part of it. So they lose it. One of the Italian people I play soccer with, we go to this like Neapolitan pizza place, and they convinced me that a very classic Italian pizza is French fries and hot dogs on a pizza. And I ordered it. They like bullied me into ordering it, and I was like, yeah, okay, fine, I'll do it. And it was
try anything.
Gross.
Yeah.
And it wasn't good. So I don't envy Weeby right now in any way.
No, I wonder how his stomach's doing. We should do some live.
I'm curious as well. It would be similar to FC Cincinnati fans' stomachs, which is this is a team that has somehow underperformed while putting up the numbers literally all season. We've talked about it a couple times on this show. The attack has never clicked. Brenner has made it better.
Yeah,
it's come back out of the complete misery they were in. It is fully dependent on Evander. The back line hasn't really been healthy. Nwobodo's injury has been a major part of that. Miazga and Miles have been in and out as well. But they, like you said, this was the big result. Like, they were the one Sunday night where it was like, okay, we know what we need to do. We have a shot to win this game and put pressure on Philadelphia. And they were incapable of seeing out a home game against, admittedly, a good Orlando team.
A very good team. Again, while Orlando, during the jumbled nature of they're currently sitting in 7th, but they have a game in hand. This is, like you said, typically just easily a top 4 team in a conference every year, except for this one in the East because of how strong it is. You look at their underlying numbers, Orlando are 5th in MLS in expected goal difference. Like, they are legitimately one of the best teams in the league, but you have them 1-0 up. It's a great header by Alexander Freeman to tie the game. It's just a gut punch for Cincy when, to your point, we always feel like there's this next gear that maybe it just isn't there right now. And who knows what's going to happen in the winter and the offseason. Is Brenner going to be able to still be here? What is going to happen? The knock-on effect of the Miles Robinson contract. Like, they've spoke openly, Chris Albright and Pat Noonan and this club, of like, we know we have a championship-worthy team and we're doing everything we can to maximize and give ourselves every chance. This Shield was a really big chance. And you never know what exactly the future is going to bring. So, yeah, it hurts. But, again, for me, like, going into the playoffs, since you're still going to be among the favorites. And the problem is that the East, like, hell, the Red Bulls got out of the East. And we're going to talk about them, obviously, very soon. But, like, the playoffs aren't guaranteed. So when you're within striking distance of the Shield, you go into the playoffs with a trophy. And you look back at the season, like, it's really unfortunate. But, again, good teams get results. Like, Orlando, not an easy one to put away. Always fighting till the end. They make a knack of this. And, again, credit to Alex Freeman. That was a really good header.
Yeah, it was a tough goal for him to score. Duncan McGuire probably should have had one earlier as well. I thought Ojeda was good, not great. A tough game for him to sort of find space and enough touches. But this is an Orlando team, I think, that should feel fairly confident going into the postseason that they can match up with everyone. And then this is a Cincinnati team that I have no idea. I think if you asked me the top 4 or 5 in the East and West, I'd say this Cincinnati team, even beyond Inter Miami, are like the biggest unknown. And I have no idea what we're going to get in the playoffs. And I have no idea like who the true identity of this team is. I was so wrong about this team. Like, I'm coming up to Yom Kippur. I'm going to be away on Thursday. You're going to be doing the show without me because you have to atone for your sins and everything. And my preseason was, I thought Evander would struggle to fit in, but the team would be so good that it wouldn't matter. That is so polar opposite of what has happened.
Can I just say something? There are people in Portland that would point to, maybe it wasn't like, you have to bend a lot of what you do. Like, he goes so off script on stuff. And again, for me, I don't subscribe to this theory or criticism of Vander because he's freaking awesome, MVP candidate. But there are people in Portland saying, you lose structure. Things become different. Ends up being a one-man wrecking crew in good and bad.
Yeah. Cincinnati are 2nd in the East, and Portland was like, what, 8th last year? Or did they make the playoffs?
In terms of the play style and in terms of why isn't the attack totally clicking, well, maybe that's part of it.
Yeah.
Which, again,
I find that really hard.
I find that trade-off. I find that I'm totally good with that trade-off if I'm Cincinnati. And I was saying that since that move happened. And I thought that the defensive structure was going to make this even, like, in Portland, he was partly their savior, but also partly, like, it's difficult to defend in transition. Well, when you have Miles Robinson, you have Matt Miazga, and you have Obi Nwobodo, there's been injuries to varying degrees for those 3 players. That's why I thought this was an absolute home run signing, because the drawbacks or potential drawbacks weren't as pronounced because the team is better around him. And again, I'm taking that trade-off 10 times out of 10, but it's fair to at least bring up why isn't the attack totally flowing and totally feeling connected? Those two things are connected.
Yeah. We are going to talk about Portland because they are still struggling and Evander's not there anymore. So that's a bit of a curveball. And they are part of this conversation around the Western Conference playoff spot. Big result for Dallas. As we mentioned, San Jose moving into the playoff spot, which was the huge curveball coming off 4 straight losses. And Dallas has been charging to get up the standings. RSL still in play and all of this. So we're going to talk about all those teams coming up in just a moment. But before we get there, one of the big stories right now is New York Red Bulls and Hudson River Derby. They experienced the full scale of what I experienced over the course of the weekend. They somewhat had a shot to control their destiny. Turns out it wouldn't have worked out that way anyway. They've left themselves too little to do too late. They played against their rivals, and they are about to make history for themselves. It was 3-2 win by NYCFC at Red Bull Arena. Insane game. You had NYCFC open up the scoring 2 minutes into the game. Then you had Red Bulls equalize, NYCFC take the lead. Then you had Red Bulls equalize again 2 minutes into the second half from Emil Forsberg, and you eventually end up getting a Thiago Martins winner off an Andres Pereira header, and NYCFC takes the win 3-2. Then after the game, some really ugly scenes in the stadium in which the Red Bulls players going around, and you can understand frustration from fans, but then an interaction between one of the supporters groups and Raheem Edwards. And afterwards, sort of the reports coming out that there was racist language used against Raheem from the crowd, which is beyond unacceptable and shouldn't even be in a person's thoughts as they are in a situation and talking to someone else. And it's part of what we continue to experience around soccer, around culture, around society, every single thing included. And I have seen videos, but you can't hear anything. I don't really understand what's happening. And so that afterwards was the darkest mark on what is a dark day for the Red Bulls, because they are most likely now going to miss the playoffs for the first time in 16 years. It is the longest playoff streak in Major League Soccer. It is, I think, one of the longest playoff streaks in professional sports. It has gone on so long that their building has never had a non-playoff team since Red Bull Arena started in Sports Illustrated Stadium. So it is, a final collapse for a club that since 2017, since 2018, has slowly taken steps back. They did make the run to MLS Cup last year out of nowhere, out of the wild card spot and the full playoff push and everything. But it feels like it's been half steps back for a while now, Tom, and now we're finally bottomed out.
The Red Bulls making MLS Cup last year was a fluke. And the structural issues with this team is the team that last season, from when Emil Forsberg got hurt to the end of the season, were one of the worst teams in the league. They had a great run to MLS Cup, very fun. That was built on set pieces, defending, and losing the XG battle every game. They had the opportunity this winter to improve. Choupo-Moting has been good. Alexander Hack has been very bad. They've missed on too many of the signings and left a DP spot open chasing Timo Werner. And ultimately, a combination of not being able to convince Werner and not willing to go to his demands. Not saying whether that was right or wrong or indifferent. It would have been a lot of money to pay him. But it was a staring contest, and Timo Werner and Timo Werner's agent won. And the Red Bulls did not have a backup plan. And the Red Bulls are missing the playoffs. All of those things are directly correlated. And furthermore, it shows that the warm blanket of that playoff run last season was not sustainable. It was not a proof that they were going in the right direction. It was not. It was a fun run and was not predictive of the future, unfortunately, because they could not build upon it. And this team would have had a reckoning last winter if they missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they will this winter, because you point to MLS Cup and you point to, well, the East was traditionally historically difficult. And that would be very bad news. And I don't know the exact changes that are necessary, because on paper there were a lot of good players. Again, Choupo-Moting and Emil Forsberg have been very good. They are not the issue. There are a lot of pieces that I like. Daniel Edelman, Peter Stroud, Sean Nealis, Carlos Cornell. These are all in Ronald Donkor. Very, very good. These are all ingredients of a playoff team. And I don't know what they need to do this winter, whether it's a couple changes or if it's something more wholesale. And I think That's the bigger worry for me because Forsberg and Choupo-Moting are now 1 year older. Forsberg has missed time since he got to this club. Choupo-Moting, how many minutes can you realistically expect him to do next year? This is why it's so imperative to have that third DP, or at least hit on several TAM signings to alleviate the game-to-game burden from your aging 2 stars.
The TAM threshold right now is what? 657, 597, whatever it is?
Mid 600s, yeah.
So this roster for the Red Bulls has, I believe it's 4 players over that threshold. That's it. So not only have they not gone and signed DPs, they have not spent a large amount on TAM players who are like players that you would choose to lean on and carry your team. They've got the 2 huge DPs in Forsberg and Choupo-Moting. They've got Lewis Morgan, who unfortunately can't stay healthy, and Alex Hack, who's had a terrible season.
I forgot about Morgan there, yeah.
Yeah, and has been a big loss for them. But you're right in that last year was a fluke, and they had the chance to look at it and say, like, we got fortunate. Now let's do the thing we should do. And in bringing in Choupo-Moting and replacing Van Zier, they upgraded, but they replaced the thing they had instead of adding to it. And this is what we've said over and over. Timo Werner would have been the add. Not the case. Great. There was no plan B, and they never pivoted to it. And now they are a 2-4-2 team if they wanted to be, but they never used the allocation money because they didn't give themselves a timeline to say, if Timo Werner's out, we need to know by X date so we can pivot and move this money around. And I say this it's that middle of the roster to me. It's like looking at this team and then saying with Cincinnati, like, where does an Orejano fall in your like rankings of where they sit? Where does a Miazga fall? You know, these are the players where, okay, you've got Emil Forsberg, who is as good as a DP as anyone else. And you've got the guys you hit on the bottom, like you said, in the Doncourse, Edelman under, a team-friendly deal, Stroud as well. It's the middle of the roster where this team has completely thinned out. They have landed on a lot of young international players, which NYCFC has done as well. Some other teams have done as well. They have hit on almost none of them. And like that is over the course of now a 3-4 year span. We're still waiting on the Wiki Carmona blow up. Like we're still waiting on some of these guys, or they just give up and bring in the next player. And that, I think, is where this roster has really fallen apart. And you could have masked it again if you had gone with a third DP and gone big and had elite talent. And you asked the Sean Nealises of the world. Noah Eiley is the one, by the way, on that international conversation. He is a good young player. He has stepped in well. He's been really good for them. You could have masked it if you had another elite attacker, and they chose not to. So there's a lot of frustration from their fans. I think all of it is completely fair. And I think that we're going to learn a lot about this club because they got out of jail free last year and they chose to not look at the underlying numbers and look at the truth. And if they do the same this year after missing the playoffs for the first time in 15 years, then they don't care. And that, I think, is a lot worse for their fans to accept.
And going to the roster bet, and to give them credit, like Choupo-Moting is not a cheap signing, Emil Forsberg, not a cheap signing. You could quibble with Forsberg comes from Red Bull Global to Red Bulls New York, whatever. At least they put the money up, and it wasn't just, signing U23 players. But to your point, like, they didn't do enough around that. And the high leverage spots on this roster, 3 DPs, 3 U23 initiatives. Well, the third DB never came, and the 3 U22s, I was good. Generard not, and Bogarts not. And Bogarts were like, not yet for both of those players. I mean, I think I'm pretty sure with the first of the 2 that might not really hit, but like those are 2 high leverage slots that didn't come in. And you've talked about Hack, you talked about the other kind of misses on the team, and that's a disappointment. Other teams have started to figure out, or at least started to say, okay, what we know on U22 initiative signings is the best return on investment is sign a 21-year-old and pay a higher fee. You are much more likely to hit on that signing. And it's more expensive, and that comes with risk in and of itself. But the class of like the Bogarts signing, what was the forward Jorgensen, Matthias Jorgensen or whatever?
Yep. Yeah.
That's what that felt like, and that's not fair to that player. Like maybe it is going to work out, but you have a higher hit rate. You know that you have a higher floor with more money, or identifying the older players. Not, and again, this isn't on him, but it's a pattern, or it's a wider recognition that this team used to be great at producing academy talents and signing players from within the league. Aaron Long, Tim Parker was the bedrock of that foundation for the Jesse Marsh early years, and that had Sasha and BWP in the attack. And BWP was a great international signing. Sasha came from MLS, went to Anderlecht, comes back. You know, Dax McCarty was a trade, and you kind of go on through that team. They're not doing that anymore. They're not finding any of the value or any of the quality players. So when they do miss on some TAM signings, and when they do miss on U22 initiative signings, there isn't that same level of foundation that there was in the past through the academy plus finding players from within the league. And that's kind of, that's where you give yourself the higher floor, and that's where you give yourself more chances to take swings, and then they become luxury players if they don't work out, and it doesn't kind of derail your season.
There's an interesting question from the chat that I want to talk about for a second, because it goes into this, which is Kevin Morris says, do you think any team can win trophies in MLS anymore without 3 DPs? And we kind of have an answer to this,
yes,
because we have all the teams lined up amongst themselves, and the teams that are on the U22 initiative model. So remember, right? 3 DPs, 3 U22s, or 2 DPs, 4 U22s, and then you get an extra $2 million allocation in discretionary allocation money, which still means that if a team chooses not to have 3 DPs, they still have to pay out to use that money. And that is the hole that the Red Bulls left, which was they don't have the DP and they didn't choose to invest that money. On the flip side, San Diego and Minnesota are U22 initiative teams, as is Vancouver. They have used that allocation money on guys like Robin Ludd, who are match winners that are not DPs. That's how you win. You win with 2 elite DPs and then a really strong band of players between 3 and 7 who are all on their day match winners and give you a really high floor. And they're not the only teams, but like those are 2 of the very obvious ones. And FC Cincinnati's in there as well. And Orjano, like those are the players, as I mentioned Miazga before, like those are players who are off DP, who are really good players, who are special players, who can make you a really special team. It is possible to win that way in Major League Soccer, but like that's a different lane. If you are just going to be cheap about it, then it's going to be pretty hard, and you have to hit on everything. And sometimes that works out. You know, Philadelphia is a team that has kind of hit on everything, has a cohesive system, and everything else about it, but it's really hard to do.
Philadelphia comes as an example, and like Ernst Tanner and that front office's track record right now is as good as, if not better than, everybody else. Like
they
people
also
always
spend millions of dollars on their academy.
Yes, but
more than other teams do.
It's really difficult to hit on a roster and like have a bunch of value signings and a bunch of, you know, play, and it's hard to do that in of itself. It is damn near impossible to do that multiple times in a row, which Philadelphia has done. So yeah, Philadelphia can count in this, but like that's a much more high wire act. And right now it's like Ernst Tanner, and I don't know how many other front offices can do that.
Yeah, I fully agree. I will say all of this comes, I think, on the back end of the Red Bulls thinning out as a club. It just feels like, from the people I know, the sport has shifted. It just doesn't feel like there's a ton of buy-in from the club itself, and therefore it has been lost from the fans. And this is a club that, didn't sell out every game, but when Jesse was there, they mattered, and fans were engaged in it, and they won trophies, and they played huge conference finals that had sellout crowds against Atlanta and the Revs back in the day when Thierry Henry was there. And they've had big moments, and it hasn't been the case recently. Let's jump over to the Western Conference, and we're going to answer Chase Garduna's question in this, which says, Soccerwise should rebrand to an Eastern Conference MLS podcast plus LAFC. So, if you're wondering...
That comment came in, I don't know, 45 seconds after we talked about San Diego for 8 minutes. Yeah. Just wanted to point that out.
If you're wondering, if Inter Miami wins one of their games in hand, there's a decent chance the top 4 teams in the Shield race will finish in the Eastern Conference. Chicago Fire right now sit in 9th on 48 points. They would be 5th in the West, and they still have a game in hand on some of the teams around them. So yes, the Eastern Conference this year is a lot better. We'll talk with Dan Lovitz about that in the podcast coming up. And the playoff race to get in the Western Conference is tough because Dallas has been on phenomenal form. Otherwise, you take 8th place, you go down. The Rapids have lost 3 of their last 5. San Jose has lost 3 of their last 5. Real Salt Lake has lost 3 of their last 5. And Houston has lost 2 and tied 1. It is not a race to the playoffs right now. It's who can back in and limp in. I'm excited to watch it close, but you are correct in that we have enjoyed watching the East a little bit more this year, and we have been more impressed by the teams we have seen in the Eastern Conference. Doesn't mean the playoffs in the West aren't going to be as equally interesting. Doesn't mean that some of these teams aren't having unbelievable years. San Diego will set this expansion record. Vancouver will have one of the best years in MLS history across multiple competitions, especially if they can win a trophy. Sun and Buanga are putting on a historic performance as a duo so far, and there's a lot of other fun things to talk about. But yes, congratulations, Chase. You accomplished what you wanted, as you just said it. Now
Well done.
let's do this Western Conference playoff race. So San Jose beat San Diego to take over the spot. RSL beat Austin, and a rotated Austin team with an Open Cup final coming up on Wednesday night. Dallas drew at Portland on a late equalizer. And then Colorado drew with Minnesota, and Houston lost to Nashville. The Houston game, they went 1-0 down in about 6 minutes. Then Sviatchenko picks up a red card about 5 minutes later. So they played 80 minutes on the road against an Open Cup finalist team with 2 of the top goal scorers and maybe the Golden Boot winner on the field. And they lost 3-1 as is like fully expected. Now in all of this, the San Jose win, the most shocking. They ceded the chances you'd expect. They ceded the possession you'd expect. To me, the team that has been the most interesting, and we've talked about them on this show, I think because of it, has been FC Dallas. The Logan Farrington, Peter Musa pairing has been really, really good. The floor feels pretty high with this team. They don't give up soft chances. And they went to a Portland team, and I thought they were the better team across the whole game. And I thought they showed their quality as well as with Anderson Julio coming off the bench, the ability to change the game and continue to push it. And to me, of all these teams left in this stretch, they feel the most reliable. And I would say if I had to pick one, that's the one I would pick to see it out. They finish with Galaxy twice and Vancouver on decision day.
Galaxy, it's a funny quirk. It was like how RSL had LAFC back-to-back games, and now they're getting LA twice. Dallas has 1 loss in their last 10 games. They have a high number of draws in that run, but I thought they were dead and buried earlier this summer around the Lucha stuff, and it was, hey, let's kind of move forward, cut our losses, and figure it out for 26. And to their credit, for a coaching situation that I thought was about to be a one and done, those questions have to be asked now of whether they do stick with Eric Quill. And so that in and of itself is respectable, and fighting back and playing well. And with Musa, with how good he is, you're always going to kind of have a chance. The defensive unit, Urguide has been, I think, quietly very, very good. It kind of doesn't make sense to be talking about how good a center back has been for a team that struggled defensively for so much of the season, but he has been very, very good. He is a building block. That was an excellent signing. So yeah, you say from 8th to 12th is Colorado, San Jose, Dallas, Real Salt Lake, Houston. Colorado have 40 points, and then San Jose and Dallas 38, Salt Lake 37, Houston 36. Where are you standing right here with where this race goes? And one more caveat, Real Salt Lake and Dallas have 1 game in hand.
Yeah, I think overall I like the way Paxton Aronson has looked with Colorado. I think he drives the game. I think there's a decent amount of energy. It feels like other guys can play off him. So as much like I think Colorado, unfortunate they don't beat Minnesota. Like they would have felt like they should have. And the loss to Dallas head-to-head is tough. But I think that if I had to pick 2 of these teams, I would pick Colorado and Dallas on pure soccer right now. And I don't see a lot in them that makes me change that. I don't think, there's no specific injury that worries me. I don't love what I've seen from Jacobs in goal for Dallas. And I thought he had a tough weekend against Portland. It was an own goal on the opening goal. He picks up a yellow card for yelling at the ref and then immediately concedes on that corner kick to an own goal, which is tough. It's just like a tough sequence all in. He kind of looks defeated pretty often when he gives up chances. But as you said, like Uragide's been good. I like a lot of the pieces in midfield. I like Kaique. I like Ramiro. So I think there's a lot of energy. Kappas has stepped in well. I think there's a lot of energy to cover ground in front of them. And Musa and Farrington and whoever is sort of like committing from the wings are so dangerous that they're going to create chances no matter what. My only regret is I had Musa for Golden Boot winner, and I probably should have had him in some MVP convo or whatever he's going to end up in. But he's going to finish on like 19 goals. He is, for his team, one of the best players in Major League Soccer.
Why do you keep pushing this notion of you keep on taking a victory lap on Peter Musa? One, as if people were saying he's bad, and two, he's not going to win the. He's not going to win the Golden Boot, and you're like, well, I should really have been talking MVP for the 10th place team in the West.
Overall, man.
What are you talking about?
Overall, he's
just
saying
saying
nonsense.
nonsense.
One of the best players in the league.
He's a really good player. MVP. What in the world are you talking about?
He's one of the best players in the league.
Try to sneak that by me. No chance, bro.
Nice.
No chance.
Colorado RSL, by the way, that one's coming up on Saturday.
Huge.
Yeah. Rocky Mountain Cup. I will actually be in Colorado while the game is in Salt Lake, which is heartbreaking for me. It had nothing to do with my travel plans, a family trip, but I would have been there if it was in Colorado.
Sure.
And you will have the coverage of that one coming up on Thursday while I'm away. Thursday afternoon is going to be the live show and then the podcast, which I'm very, very excited about. What do you have two teams here that you would lean on in specific reasons?
Yeah, so Colorado I believe in them as a group, and they do have that 2-point cushion. But this is a huge one between Real Salt Lake and Colorado. It's too much for crapshoot here. San Jose, of course, they went on the road and beat San Diego when they're dropping points at home to non-playoff teams because that's the San Jose experience, and that's why we love it. I want to go back to another thing that Chase Carduno said in the chat. Like, does Pablo Mastroeni keep his job this winter? I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know. Because on one hand, I think he's a good coach, and I don't necessarily, he didn't have DPs until the summer. And Diego Luna's been gone for so much. But on the other hand, it's not as if they're flying, and he has been there for a while, so it's not a great podcast line here, my last 15 seconds, but I honestly don't know what I would do.
I guess one of the things that would be tough in that is what's the expectations? And has he fallen short? So this is a club that has made the playoffs every year for the last 4 years, and they haven't won a round in the playoffs the last 3. So is the gap there between 7th or 8th in the West and 10th in the West, and not winning a playoff game either way, the difference between it being a successful season or not? I think they've underwhelmed over these 3 years, but they made the postseason every year, and therefore that's been good enough. So
underwhelmed. Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if I wouldn't say that they're necessarily overperforming, but I'll tell you what, there's a lot of worry that. So I don't know. Look at Dallas's last few years, from Lucci to Nico to Eric Quill. How much has changed?
Yeah.
And I think that there is a worry, and it's a decision on. I think you got a decent floor with Pablo Mastroeni, but if it's 10th in the West, then that's not enough. But I'll tell you, we could be sitting here this time next year being like, new coach, are they on the hot seat? Wow, they're in 13th place. That doesn't look great. And again, maybe it would go better. So I truly, I don't know where I land out on this. I don't know. Houston made their coaching change, and then Paulo Nagamura wasn't here for very long. And there's been other teams in DC, and there were a lot of more different issues with different teams and stuff. But I guess I don't think it's totally his fault, but I think that the team could be doing better. So I'm really, really torn on this one. And Chase, it is a good question and something that, again, in professional soccer, it's probably a new coach, because that's what you do and that's what teams do. And there are plenty of valid reasons for that. But I can still really see a scenario in which that happens, and then they're 14th next year, and Diego Luna's playing for somebody else.
I think what you would hope is, if that happened, that there would be a consensus inside the club, which under a new ownership group might be a little bit tougher to come to already, of okay, well, this is our identity. AKA, are they going to produce young players? Are they going to force minutes on them? Are they going to try and be Philadelphia West? If that's the case, which I think a large amount of the academy investment is there to be that team, then you have to open up the spots for those players to play, and you got to force the minutes on them. And I don't think Pablo's that guy. But also, I don't think he's been given the roster for that. Like, he's been given DPs and experienced players in positions to play, and they're going to win you a game probably today better than that young player. And that's where the club has landed. They've worked Diego Luna in. Gozo's been awesome. He is one of the great stories of this season. So wherever they land on that, you got to make that decision first, and then you would hire someone into that and say they have an understanding of exactly what we want to accomplish and exactly what we want to be. All right, let's dig into Open Cup. We have Daniel Lovitz coming up in just a moment on the podcast. So if you're listening there, you will get a large amount of Open Cup preview. If you're watching live or watching back on YouTube, go to the podcast for that. Let's just talk big picture, what it would mean for these two clubs. And then we will get into a lot of the conversation with Daniel Lovitz. Let's start with Austin here, Tom. It's their first final to ever host at their stadium. Q2 Stadium bounces. Like, I think this is going to be a really cool atmosphere for an Open Cup final. I'm very upset that I won't be there, that it is the holiest night of the year for us, and I'm not going to be able to go. But next year, I guess we'll be at the Open Cup final. It's going to be a big deal. It's going to be a big deal, I think, for a club that is super relevant in their market. And it feels even bigger because, similar to what we talked about with the Red Bulls last year and MLS Cup, like, it's an outlier that they've made it this far, but they're one home game away from lifting their first trophy.
Yeah, that's where I want to start with the fans. Also, FC have really, really good fans. As you said, they have resonated in the market, and that's a positive reflection of the club itself and doing things, but also a reflection of the fans themselves and how many people deeply care about soccer in that city. It's been tough. They had the run to the Western Conference Final under Josh Wolf and Sebastian Driussi, his great year. That was a ton of fun. Those Austin home games, that stadium jumping through the TV. Absolutely loved it. They've suffered through some barren stretches. They've suffered through some frustrating, not exactly the most entertaining brands of soccer, and some teams that were very, very good. And this season, they still haven't been exciting, but they're picking up points. And man, these fans are rewarded with a home cup final, and that's where my mind goes first. In terms of what it mean, you put silverware in the cabinet, and then you're always going to point to it. You always get it's Nico Estevez after the Brand Vasquez injury. That was a tough hand. We neither of us, I think this roster is, top third in the league. Maybe it's average, maybe it's somewhere within there. So you've got to give Nico Estevez credit for what he's done. Again, even if it's not the most exciting brand of soccer, it's been successful. And if you win a trophy, we're not going to be talking about, oh man, like, they needed penalties to get past San Jose earlier in the tournament, or it's really frustrating Uzuni's doesn't have a lot of XG from open play. No, what you talk about is winning the trophy and what that day was like for you and your friends and your loved ones, and going to the game and being or watching the game, doing whatever you're doing. Like, that's all that matters at the end of the day. And this will be a fascinating game. I know we're talking about what it means for the team, but like, Nashville are probably gonna have the possession, and Austin are gonna, like, that atmosphere is going to play a role in this game. Yeah. And I'm excited that this is being hosted in such a strong, like, potential home game, like a potential crowd. We'll see what it is. I hope that it's bouncing on a Wednesday night. Earlier in this tournament, there haven't been a ton of great atmospheres, even as we got to the semifinals. I get it, it's midweek and stuff, but that's been a little disappointing. I'm assuming that this is going to be a good one in Austin.
Yeah, it has the potential to reignite, I think, all the excitement for this team. 2 to 3 years in, you had the great run with Driussi second in the West, and you had it being new and it being, like, sexy and fun and exciting. And I don't think that's dropped as much as you'd expect in terms of, like, attendance and awareness of the team, but it has in terms of excitement. And so this gives you a whole nother pop. There's no other pro team. Like, are they going to have a parade? They could. I would be shocked if most cities would do that. Austin seems capable of it. And it's on the table now because you put yourself in the situation to host this game and win it. So I think it's going to feel really big. For Nico Estevez and Rodolfo Borrell, it is massive, because if the roster's not where it should be, that's on Borrell, who just spent a ton of money on it. And if it's not being maximized, then that's on Nico Estevez. And if you steal a trophy out of all of that, that gives you 18 more months of, like, you can, at minimum, you have all of next season. And I think that is really, really big for both of them. Maybe it gets you through the Vasquez injury when he comes back, and now you can start to find your form. Whatever it is going forward, like it saves where they sit for a really long time. And you're in a state where the other clubs have more history. Like you are with an MLS original. You're with a Houston team that's won a bunch of MLS Cups. They just won an Open Cup. Dallas has won an Open Cup. So to put yourself in there, I think is really, really big for this team. And as good as Nashville is, and I think this team is really, really good, you're never going to get a better chance than a home single game elimination against a team that currently doesn't sit top 5 in their conference. Now, on the flip side, you could probably say the same for Nashville, which
for
is
sure.
an Austin team that's struggling, even though it's on the road. You're going to, the last final you played in, you played against Lionel Messi in Miami. Like this one is probably a little bit more doable, a little bit more straightforward for them. And Walker Zimmerman said it on Kickback Committee a few weeks ago, and Daniel Lovitz, the interview we're going to get to, says it again. No pro team in the state of Tennessee has ever won a championship. So to be the first is a big opportunity for Nashville SC to like put their stamp on the larger state, put their stamp on the pro sports scene and say like, we are relevant. We're a part of this. Take us seriously. And it would also set the stage to take some pressure off what could be a team that could make a playoff run.
Yeah. The same applies for Nashville. Like you said, both of these teams are looking at this a cup final no matter what, but both teams are going to be talking to themselves, okay, Austin, we're home. Nashville, like, well, Austin, like, we think we're better than them. We have this, so they got to the Leagues Cup final, and they played Miami really hard and ended up losing. I believe that was penalties, right? This team, there's an iteration of Nashville, the Hani, Walker Zimmerman, the Lovitz, the Joe Willis, in particular, a trophy caliber team.
Yeah.
They were never like, oh my God, this is the best team in MLS. But they've always been very good outside of last season when Gary Smith got fired. So this being a culmination of their expansion season, again, Hani, Walker, Joe Willis, Dan Lovitz, Jack Mayer, all of them are originals on this team. And that is rare for that to continue through this time, for them to all still be very good, to get to varying degrees. But Hani Mukhtar dipped, and now he's completely back to like MVP caliber Hani Mukhtar. Sam Surr just completely jumped under BJ Callahan, and the team has evolved and changed. But this, I think it'd mean a lot for how them making the playoffs their first 4 seasons. Like only a couple teams had done that in expansion history. So for Nashville to culminate this with a trophy, I think would be fitting, fair, and I know that they desperately want it. I know that they take the Open Cup itself very seriously. They've taken Leagues Cup seriously, and they've played hard playoff games, but they haven't gotten a trophy. And it feels like if they came away with an Open Cup trophy, or if it was the Leagues Cup in a different circumstance or whatever, we'd be like, yeah, on the balance of things, that was a deserving trophy team. And it's nice that they get another opportunity, because you're not guaranteed that. And saying things like, yeah, they would be a fitting winner, that doesn't equal a trophy. And often, like the sad part of sports is professional sports is a lot of deserving winners don't get a win for things that are out of their control, whether it's injuries or unlucky bounces, or there's a lot of really deserving teams. So Nashville getting that another opportunity for a final with this core that is, again, tweaked with some other fresh faces and important players, I think is fitting, and I'm excited for them for that opportunity.
Hani Mukhtar has been good enough to be the star player of a team that's won, as you've said. Like a lot of this core has. Lovitz is a part of it with Walker, with Joe Willis. Like they've put up some really big results. This is the best soccer that they have played, pure quality. And this is a huge opportunity for them to win their first trophy for both teams. It would be the first trophy they've ever won, and it would be the first Open Cup victory. And for Nashville, can you imagine coming off that back into league play, trying to push in the playoffs? You finished with decision day at home against Miami, who would be like a revenge game back to the Leagues Cup final, and doing so after being a team that won the US Open Cup. It would be absolutely massive. In terms of on the field, like it's going to be fun to watch. Austin's going to cede possession. Nashville's going to take it. And the question is that cat and mouse game. As the fullbacks push, where does Hader O'Brien find space, and Usman Bukhari? That's the big question. Can he elevate and play like what is expected of him? The openings will be there for his 1v1 moments, his ability to get out into the open space. Can he make the right play at the right time for this Austin team? You know the group will be there, like what they did in Minnesota, to stay together, to stay sort of against the game under pressure, to concede late and then come back and win it, shows that they at least are playing as a unified group. And now the question is if they have the quality to get over the top. And then for Nashville, I think, can they play free? Like, can they come out and be open and aggressive? That's when they're at their best now under BJ Callahan. It's a final. People get nervous. Don't do it. Like, go and play your soccer. Trust that the chances will be there. Trust that Serge and Hani will put them away and open up the game and play quickly and let Tagseth and Yazbek and these guys set pace, set tempo, and play on the front foot. But we don't really need to talk about it more. Why don't we go to the expert? So now we have Daniel Lovitz, Nashville SC left back, on all things Open Cup. If you are watching on YouTube, that will be on our podcast feed when it comes out in a little bit. So go over there. Tom, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for making me experience all my pain about the New York Mets publicly and with other people. I hate you for it. And thank you for filling in for me on Thursday. You're going to be with Joe Larry, one of the best. So it's going to be an awesome
Absolute
show.
Legend.
I'm very, very jealous of that one. You'll have the reaction to all things Open Cup coming out of that game, which will be big. And then talking about the weekend upcoming.
Yeah, looking forward to that. That'll be fun. Always sad not to do it with you, but we'll soldier on and we'll get it done. Always glad to talk to Joe Larry. Also, I'm on Morning Footy. It's on Paramount Plus Monday through Thursday. Today's Monday, so that already happened. But if you're around in the morning and you have a Paramount Plus subscription, and you see this familiar dumb mustache on TV, feel free to tune in. We're going to be talking some Open Cup amid the Champions League and everything else. So, Goss, I know you'll be there. I know you'll be locked in.
Yeah, I will be locked in the entire time. We have Kickback Committee coming out tomorrow. We're going to be doing a whole episode of Open Cup coverage. We'll be talking to a lot of different voices who will be around the game. We're talking to one of our favorites, Mr. Kalen Carr, as an analyst to help break it down, and then some fans in both markets. We've also got your Jägermeister Cup coverage as well. So we're working on some interviews to prep for that one as Sacramento hosts Hartford, and that one coming up this weekend on Saturday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. So thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you for listening. Please rate, review us, leave everything on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Tell someone to listen